Hello and welcome to the Arsenal Bite Size Podcast. I'm your host Clayton at Clates AFC on X, and we're here to preview the Brentford game. And to do that with me, I'm delighted to welcome Tom to the pod. Welcome, mate. How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure.
Yeah, looking forward to this one. For people that don't know, you're obviously a Brentford fan, so it's nice to get the perspective from the opposition. A couple of questions before we get into it. Could you share a bit about your journey, how you got into supporting Brentford? And I told you this just before we went live, didn't I? So I didn't really give you time to prep it, but
No.
one of your highlights as a Brentford fan in your time supporting the club.
Yeah. So I bought the club for forever, really. It's a family club, so I think it's my great granddad used to go down to the games. My granddad lived my great granddad actually lived around the corner from Griffin Park a long time ago. Then my granddad sort of was all in sort of West London way, and my dad's West London as well. And then I live in Bristol now, but all my family's from down that way. So yeah, always supported the club, always gone to games, and yeah, it's there's not many of us, to be honest. So it's always niche trying to find a Brentford fan.
Yeah, you're the only one I know, to be fair. And obviously we know each other through Planet FPL, but no, I don't actually know a Brentford fan, to be fair.
No, it's always quite nice, really. So like, you always bump into someone like really randomly. It's like, oh yeah, I know a Brentford fan, and like it's quite nice because it's quite a small, quite a small supported club still.
Yeah, and I guess that goes nicely onto the kind of favourite highlight, because like, as a club, what you've achieved is amazing, and like the fact that you've been a fan since you were young, like I guess you've been there for every level of the journey, right? So I guess is it quite hard to pick one standout moment?
No, I think the one that like really stands out is 2013-14 season against Preston North End. So it was like 4 games to go, and it was like I think it was Wolves won the league that year, which is obviously another weird when you think about it. They were obviously where they are now. And we played Preston North End and Leyton Orient were playing at the same time as us, and it was like 4 games to go, and if they lost and we won, then we went up, and we won 1-0 I think that day.
Nice.
It ensue, pitch invasion, everything.
Were you there for that?
Yeah, I was there for that. Yeah,
unbelievable.
We it's because obviously living sort of a bit further away, we can't get every single game, and we were like, well, we need to go. We need to, last few games, let's make sure we're there. And yeah, it just happened that it was one of those games we weren't expecting, because I think Leyton Orient were expected to win as well, and they just capitulate at the end, and it's like coming through the terraces, like our Leyton Orient are losing, and it's like we're actually going to get promoted, and yes, that's I think 2013-14 season. So
that's unbelievable, proper goosebumps moment, I bet.
Yeah, amazing, yeah, really cool, and it was nice because it was me, my dad, and my granddad, so it was like all 3 of us together. So it's like a proper cool moment of like family sort of all
nice.
at the time.
And how have you found the experience, kind of being like, I'd say you're kind of fully established in the Premier League now since you've been promoted again, a couple of years ago now. Was it 2022, I think?
No, so this will be our 3rd season.
Is it the 3rd?
No, 4th. It might be 4th season actually. Now thinking about it.
But
I say I'm so, as we said just before, I'm so bad at pinpointing moments. But yeah, I'm pretty sure actually it's our 4th season now. Thinking about it.
Fair play. Well, it was a famous return in terms of the Arsenal circumstances, weren't it? So you obviously jumped on us in your first game back. Were you at that game?
I wasn't at that game, no, but I was sat with, because obviously it was on telly as well. I sat with a mate who's an Arsenal fan as well, watching that, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna," the classic before. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna beat you," and all this, and then obviously that Sergio Camp's goal was quite spectacular.
Yeah,
start off.
And I'm interested to get the kind of Brentford perspective before we get into the game. Go through the lineup, score predictions, and stuff. What's the kind of perception of Arsenal amongst Brentford circles, and I guess your own opinion? And even though it's an Arsenal channel, you don't need to dress it up. Just say it as it is, and how you kind of perceive Arsenal.
I think it's like, you can't really say anything bad about what they're doing at the moment. I think there's, obviously you currently have our old set piece coach. So obviously that's been in the news talking about it. We talk about that as the sort of one from being from a Brentford connection. That obviously your set piece coach was our old set piece coach before he joined you guys, or Man City before you guys. Obviously went with Mikel, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I guess from looking outwards, it's like, it's nice to see you guys doing what you've done historically. So like, obviously Arsenal historically have been up there and about, and obviously previous few years before the last few years, you've obviously not been right at the top, and so it's nice to see you back there. So it's a big club, and obviously it's always nice to see them do well, and it's nice to see someone else being up there apart from Man City, let's be honest.
No, it's interesting. I do feel, because with a There's a lot of different clubs where I think there tends to be like animosity between clubs, and you can't really put your finger on why. But I get the feeling that between like Brentford and Arsenal, and especially Thomas Frank, like he's always quite complimentary around Arsenal, Arteta, and I always get the vibe that Arteta feels the same way about Brentford. There seems to be quite a lot of mutual respect there. So yeah, I'm sure that will all go out of the window tomorrow when. But, final one, just before we get into it, like, what's the kind of verdict from Brentford fans on how your season's going so far? It's obviously at home, vibes, goals, and unbelievable entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely.
You haven't won in the league, right? So
no, I mean,
kind of verdict amongst Brentford fans at the minute.
But I find really so looking at it, all of our games away from home, I think apart from Everton, have been against teams in the top half, and all of our games at home, apart from Newcastle, have been against teams in the bottom half. So it's sort of one of those where it sort of seems to be, hopefully it'll level out. So I mean, after yourselves, we've got Southampton next away, and I think that'd be then the market to see, right, is it actually that we're just not performing very well away from home this season, or is it that actually we're doing absolutely fine and it's just the teams we've played away have been a lot harder than the teams we've played at home? From an injury point of view, I know we'll get into it in a minute, but obviously we've been absolutely decimated again this year. So same as last year, really. And it just stops the moment. Like, I think you talk about it and you go sort of like, well, we're in a really good run and we're playing really well at home. And it's like, well, if we had that sort of squad depth and the ability to bring in first team players, then we actually might be able to put ourselves in a good position to finish that, potentially get into that top half. That obviously we did in our second season. So,
and is that what the kind of objectives would have been in the summer? And I guess what were the objectives in the summer versus what they are now, given the context of everything you're facing injury wise?
Yeah, I think from what happened last season, obviously we had a bit of a much worse season than obviously the previous two seasons. I think it was to sort of cement yourselves back in that sort of like that mid-table area, sort of like, your 10th, 11th, 12th position. The way we started then, and obviously how we were performing at home, I think then Brent fans were going, there's the potential there of finishing a little bit higher than we, think we could get to. I think that was the pre-season sort of verdict. And then obviously there was a lot more talk about players coming back who'd been out obviously the previous season for the whole season. And that's not happened. So yeah. I think it's sort of from where we are now, trying to cement ourselves in that mid-table position, those sort of 10th, 11th, 12th places, and get ourselves another season next year.
Yeah, makes sense. And I guess the one thing that everyone was talking about in the summer, and it was probably doing your head in, was obviously the kind of Ivan Toney sort of things, right? And I mean, I don't think you've missed him at all from the goal scoring side of things. I don't know if general play style you feel like you miss him sometimes, but like the way Bumo stepped up, the way Visser's stepped up in periods, like I saw a stat and I can't remember what it was, but something in terms of like the amount of goals you scored being it was up there in the league and stuff at home. It's absolutely outstanding. But
I haven't checked it. I haven't checked it recently, but I think we were just behind Spurs and Chelsea up to sort of the last couple of games maybe, and that's the last time I checked it. But we were sort of right up there, obviously. And Bukayo and Visser are both they're sort of like 6th and 7th top scorers in the league, I think, at the moment. So it's pretty good. They're playing. I mean, Visser's playing way better than I thought he would be. For me, I thought when Thiago was obviously he's got injured himself, but when we signed Igor Thiago as a sort of, I think, Toney replacement, and then obviously he didn't start the season. It was Visser stepped up way past what I was expecting. I mean, there was talks to him leaving last summer, so the fact that that's not happened and he's performing as he is performing, it's great.
Yeah, fair play. No, but interested. We'll go to the lineups now, and you can talk through the injury list. But I'm interested in your score prediction later, because everything we're talking about in terms of the entertainment, the goals that comes, especially when you're at home. Very interested in that. But predicted lineup for you. So the lineup that started against Brentford was Flekken, who obviously went off injured. Roerslev, Collins, me, Lewis Potter, Janelt, Norgard, Damsgaard, Bumo, Sade, and Visser. I've got FOTMob open in front of me.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read the injury list, or do you want to go for it?
I mean, I always forget. There's so many on there now. I forget them all. But
I'll read through them. So it's me, Flekken, Henry, Pinnock, Ager, Vandenberg, Hickey, Jensen, Gomez, De Silva, and Rodriguez. Like, that is absolutely absurd.
Yeah, it's just it's defensively. I mean, going forward, obviously, if you look at the sort of the front three on the picture there with Sade, Visser, and Mbumo. That's sort of, I say at the moment, it's not far away from being first choice, really. Potentially you've got Thiago to come in, but defensively, it's like it's a shambles, really. So obviously Flekken came off against Brighton. They expect him to sort of, it's only a minor, so I don't expect him to start against you guys, but I think he'll be back shortly. Roslev, second choice, right back. Third choice really now behind Aya and Vandenberg. Collins is the only first team fit centre back. Ben Mee again was sort of, you're looking at now sort of third choice centre back. He's got great experience. He's injured as well, so I don't even know who's going to play at centre back with Collins this weekend, which will be interesting. And Lewis Potter's a left winger, not a left back, but has been utilised there since.
Looks a good player from the bits I've seen of him, to be fair.
He's been fantastic, to be fair, from what he's been asked to do this season. At the start of the season when he was playing left wing, he was great. And he's now moved back and was playing like left wing back and left back. There's obviously the few defensive mistakes in there, but you sort of expect it because, he's not a left back. But yeah, it's looking at that, it's not pretty. Roslev's more comfortable as a right wing back rather than a right back. Defensively, he's not great. Going forward, really good, but sort of being that defensive unit, Roslev's not really the one. And I think, and the same with Lewis Potter. So it could be a very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So potentially one for our wingers then. What do you reckon your starting 11 will be? And based on what you predict, what do you think are the areas Arsenal need to be wary of in terms of where you'll be able to exploit us, and what are the areas that you think are your weaknesses? I mean, you kind of touched on both already, I guess, in terms of your attack being potent and the fullback areas potentially being a bit weak.
Yeah. I mean, a centre back's going to be interesting as well. We might have Vandenberg back, so if he's back, then obviously he'll feel straight into centre back. So I imagine. So my assumption will be Valdemarson in goal, Roslev right back, Collins.
So is Flekken definitely out then?
I think so. From what Frank said, it's minor, and he said hopefully he'll be with the squad, but I can't imagine him taking a risk with him. Sure. It's one of those where I think how we've always seen against sort of, if we say like the traditional top six, and so like Arsenal obviously being included in that, we always see it's almost like a free hit against you guys. We can go out and just sort of attack it and hope for the best. And if we lose, there's no Brentford fan that's going to sit back and go, well, we deserve to win that. We might be deserved to win it, but we're not expecting to win it. We're going in there, but if we can get a point in there, we can get a result against you guys, and obviously that's a massive bonus. So for us, it's almost a no pressure game. I think that's why we've seen us perform really well in these big 6 games previously. But yeah, I think we'll see Roslev right back, Collins, then obviously we'll sit right centre back. If Vandenberg's back, obviously he'll go straight into left centre back. If not, then you might see Norgard or Janot. I would imagine Janot would play centre back actually instead.
Sure.
Lewis Potter then obviously on the left. Norgard is in there fine. And then it'll be Yarmouk, the Ukrainian, the youngster. He's been playing really well.
Good player, yeah.
Really good. Yeah, he's looked fantastic. So he's not, it's not like we're talking about a major downgrade if he comes into the team. And then we'll see I would assume the same front four. So Damsgaard and Mbumo, Sade and Visser. Usually I'd say we go to a back 5 against you guys, but I just don't think we've got the personnel to do it. So I think our best form in this would be to go and just try and attack you as best as possible. So it could be an interesting game.
Okay, interesting. On the Arsenal side of things, the lineup that started against Ipswich was ex-Brentford keeper David Raya in goal. Back 4 was Timber, Saliba, Gabriel and Lewis Skelly. Midfield 3 was Rice, Odegaard, Havertz. Front 3 was Martinelli, Jesus, Trossard. I think there'll be a couple of changes for this one. I think away from home, I feel like that's a Havertz centre forward game rather than a Jesus one. That's not to say I think Jesus will come out of the team though. Like obviously Saka's not there. Martinelli played on the right. I can see Jesus starting on the right in this and Martinelli on the left and Trossard coming out of the team and Havertz going up top. So my predicted 11 for this one, it's funny, like I'm just going off on a bit of a tangent here, but what you said about the kind of injuries Brentford are up against and have been all season in terms of, you use the word momentum, that resonates so much with me this season as an Arsenal fan. I feel like every time we look like we're about to hit a bit of momentum, there's another injury, there's another setback, and it's felt like it's come in layers for us. Our injury list has never been quite as long as yours is right now, but it's the way it's kind of come in different periods. Like we had 3-4 injuries in the defense at one time where it was like the first choice is out, then the backup, and it's like we were having to field makeshift back fours. Then Odegaard was out for 2 months. Now Saka's out, and it's just like those. It's the timing of everything. So yeah, it was just something you said earlier that really resonated with me. But yeah, my predicted 11 for this game is Raya in goal. I think Timber, Saliba, Gabriel again. I actually think Calafiori will come in for this one. I think Lewis Skelly's he's performing so well, but he's a kid, so I think it will be a lot to ask him to be playing these every 3 days at the minute. So I think he'll get a breather, come out of the team. Calafiori will come in my opinion. Midfield 3, I think, will be Partey, Rice, left 8, Odegaard, right 8. And then, yeah, I think Jesus on the right, Havertz up top, Martinelli on the left. It just feels a game for a Havertz up top to potentially, if you're saying there's some doubt in the back line as well, that feels like the best guy to try and go and take advantage of it. We'll head into score predictions now. Before I do that, I'll just shout out a couple of the guys in the chat. We've got Uncle Mike in saying good morning. Pontus Janssen in, good morning. Mike went to watch Brentford at Wembley in that cup final in the 80s. Yeah, Tom and I were not even born. Tell us more about that one, because.
Oh yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh no, I meant to Mike there.
I know.
Mike, tell us in the chat. Yeah, interested to know more about that. But yeah, Tom, interested in score predictions for this one, and even like tactically, like how do you see you guys setting up? It was interesting there. You said usually you kind of treat these kind of air quote bigger games as a bit of a free hit, and you kind of go for it. Like that is kind of music to my ears as an Arsenal fan, because I don't know if you've seen us against Ipswich or Everton, but teams that deploy a low block, I personally think we really do struggle against to break them down. So I almost think if you did deploy a low block, we'd struggle. But if you came to play us, maybe I'd back us to try and pick you off and score a few. But yeah, how do you see you approaching the game tactically before you kind of give the score prediction?
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on if we've got Van den Berg back, to be honest. So if Van den Berg's back, my assumption will be it'll be a 5 back out of possession with like Janelt dropping back into the back three. Sure. If he's not back, then we just, as I said, we just don't have the personnel to be able to cover a 5 back. I can't see who else comes in with, the amount of injuries we've got back there. There's no one else that can come. And, there's not been too much about Ben Mee, so I don't know if he's fit or available. So if either one of those are available, it might be that we do go into a back 5. But yeah, I think it's going to have to be one of those where it is almost going to have to be a free hit and just go out and attack it, really. And my assumption will be there won't be. Frank's one of those. He seems to be one of those managers. He doesn't like to take risks with players that they don't need to be taken a risk with. And I think that with games afterwards, it doesn't make sense for us to risk players against yourselves, because the expectation is, we don't beat you. If we're being really honest, I'd love to be really positive and say, we're going to come out and beat you again like we did the first season. But with what we've got and how we are with personnel, I don't think we're going to be able to defend like we have done with that back 5. He's also been a little bit more free flowing this year, Frank, in the sort of how we're playing. He seems to sort of be away from that back 5 more. So I think we've only sort of used it once or twice this season.
Yeah.
As I said, I think we would have done against you if we were able to. But I think the only thing I'll see is we'll maybe go for a back 5 out of possession and move back into a sort of back 4 in possession with either Lewis Potter going down the left or maybe Janelt coming in back out of the. No, actually, imagine it would be Janelt sort of sitting far left-hand side, because he's obviously been deployed left back before. So I imagine then out of possession, you have Lewis Potter then going down the left-hand wing. Okay. And that push Sade into the centre. That's best case scenario, I'd say. Sure. It depends, but obviously that depends a lot on if Ben Mee and Van den Berg are fit. Yeah. Because if they're out, then obviously we're going to have to play one of Janelt or Norgard, I think, at centre back, or a youngster. I'll
let you give 2 score predictions then, if they're fit and if they're not. What do you reckon?
Let's go with, if they're fit, I think I'll be positive. I'll go 1-1.
Okay.
If they're not fit, it could be anything. I mean, if they're not fit, I'll go 3-2 you. 3-2
wow.
to Arsenal.
Okay. Yeah. Goals. Flipping. Oh, what a way to start the new year.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, we'll go after it. As soon as we concede, we'll go after it, and then obviously that'll let you guys in again. So we'll.
Interesting. Is that the way you've described that? Like, I could see a very similar game to what we had against Crystal Palace in the league. Like, and funny, the midfield I've predicted to start tomorrow has Partey at the base, and I think that's so good for our ball progression. But we do look a little bit more open in transition when he's at the base. But if Rice is there, which Rice didn't start against Palace, it was Havertz, so hopefully that helps. But yeah, I don't know, the way you've described it, like prior to speaking to you, I was like, not that I'm not nervous now, but I was really nervous before. There's just something about Brentford. I think Thomas Frank is such a good coach, and like I know you're up against it in terms of injuries and stuff at the minute, but I think a lot of it is just my faith in him as a coach. I think he's very good. There's certain managers I'm like, I will get one over them, no problem. But with him, it's like I back him to pull a rabbit out of the hat and come up with something innovative. But as you've been speaking through this and kind of giving more insight into the style of play, how you might go for it, the injury list, I think, maybe it might play to our advantage on this day, and hopefully we'll have enough to kind of go and get the win. So I'm going 3-1 to the Arsenal away win, but a lot of that is dependent on the back line that is fielded, I guess. A couple of questions that has come to mind just while we've been talking, and then we'll get out of here. Just on the score prediction front, actually, Mike Alpin's gone score prediction 2-1 to the Arsenal away win, and the final he was talking about, it was Brentford against Wigan in the Freight Rovers final in the 80s, open top bus parade from Acton. I think Mike used to live in Acton growing up, actually, so that makes sense. But the couple of questions from me is the identity shift. Like, you spoke a bit about the kind of moving away from the back five, the attacking football, and so, like, has that been a conscious choice? Was there a trigger behind that shift? Has it been such a noticeable shift, or has it just been a coincidence in some games?
I think it's mainly be down due to personnel. I think if you had, the two major players that we're missing, obviously at the moment, is Rico Henry and Aaron Hickey. Rico Henry is a far more defensive player. Like his ability, because of his speed, is so good at left back, and then Hickey's more of a sort of your attacking presence. But because we've not been able to do that, it's sort of just been with the attacking personnel we've got. I don't think anyone was expecting Mikel Damsgaard to be as good as he's been this season. I mean, for me, he's been player of the season so far. He's really stepped up from. And to be honest, my personal opinion is that I think that we signed Fabio Carvalho to be almost a Mikel Damsgaard insurance.
Okay.
And I just don't think. I think the fact that Fabio Carvalho is not getting any game time at the moment is purely down to how good Mikel Damsgaard's been. We saw glimpses of it last season, but we've never because of his injury record, we never seen it in full flow. And this season, he's just been incredible. And I think it's one of those where you've got players like that. Kevin Sharde's been good when he's been in the team, and obviously Mbuma and Visser have been incredible. And the fact that we're having to play like a left winger at left back just allows us to sort of be more attacking and more advanced. I think that's the main reasons why, really. There's always been an injury to sort of one person at the back where we've had to sort of play that back for.
Sure. So
Aya's been out at the start, and so we've played Vandenberg at right back. Vandenberg got injured, so then we're playing Aya at right back. It's sort of, there's only been a couple of games where we've actually had a full back line where we've been able to get players. And obviously now Pinnock's injured, and so it's always never just quite been enough, I think, to get the back five in. Sure. Not that, it might be that he at the start of the season was like, don't want to have this at all.
Do you prefer it as a fan? Like, obviously not the injuries, but like the forced shift in style. Is it what do you prefer?
It's hard to say, really. So I think it's what I've seen this year is sort of what you expect almost from a team where we're at, where it's always been, okay, we'll beat the quote unquote lower half teams, but then we'll struggle against the top teams. And we've always been traditionally, well, when we go to the top team, we give them a really good game.
Yeah.
And I think that's because he's been able to sort of really solidify that back five. And defensively this season, it's just not been, again, because we've had zero consistency, we've not been able to get there where we've been, all the top teams we've played so far this season, we've pretty much lost them all. So as you can see from the away record, whereas that's not been the case in previous seasons. So I think it's been positive from a watching the game point of view. It's been quite fun to watch. but it would be nice to be able to turn up to Arsenal, for example, and go, right, we're going to put in a back five, we're going to try and break on the counter, and hopefully we'll score a couple of goals and just get ourselves through it.
Fair play. And is this going to be a game where we see an early goal? You obviously had a couple of games earlier in the season where I forgot who one was definitely against Spurs, but I forgot who the other one was.
Man City, I think, was the other one.
That was
and then the final one was, I can't remember, to be honest. Actually, I can't remember either. No, I think that was purely coincidence, to be honest.
Oh, do you? You don't think that was like a planned tactical coaching thing at all?
I think it's one of those where, so we're really good at second balls. Again, so, talked about obviously the set piece coach earlier, but I think that's a massive thing that we do sort of spend a lot of time in. You see, obviously, the long throws is a big thing that we work on, but winning second balls is a massive thing that we work on. And I think it just happened to be that those 3 games, it was ball back to Mark Flekken. Mark Flecken's a fantastic passer of the ball, long passing, and so he can pick out a player. And then we were just winning second balls, and it just happened to be that it was falling to players who were then scoring goals. I don't think there was anything too much more than that. And I think it's one of those where, obviously, I think we were trying to get it upfield and do that, but it's just, obviously, as you know, goal can come at any time. So
yeah, no, fair play. Well, thanks a lot, Tom. This has been absolutely brilliant. It's always great to get the insight from a fan of the opposition rather than us talking about things purely with an Arsenal lens on it. So, appreciate you jumping on. It's been great to chat. Where can people follow you on the socials?
So I'm FPL Dummy Tom, where I talk mainly about FPL, but Brentford's my main sort of it's the main tweets on there, and I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky now as well. So that's it.
Lovely stuff. Cheers, everyone, for joining. If you're watching live, please drop the stream a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss when we go live for future episodes. And if you're listening on podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It's the last podcast of 2024, so be kind. We'll be back on Friday. We've got a Brighton fan coming on to preview that game, and then we're going to do a review on Sunday. We'll combine the Brentford and the Brighton games together to review that on Sunday. So thanks for all of your support in 2024. Hope 2025 is a great year for you all. And Tom, good luck for tomorrow and for the rest of the season. Cheers, mate. Up the Arsenal. Cheers, everyone.